What's up? What's up? What's up? Yeah, just a little bit of stuff going on. Yeah, yeah. Rosh Hashanah is New Year.
Okay, that's good. That's nice to know that they couldn't hear me. That's great. So now I can just say it all over again. My bad on that. I forgot I had myself muted from the streamcast the other day. No, as you said, we haven't done a wired up in quite some time, and knowing that this was All Star Week, I thought it would be a good time to bring up some content, talk a little bit about this past season, as obviously we're get into postseason here, but then in addition to that, talk a little bit about Rising Stars as well as season 12. So a lot of good things to look forward to. We appreciate you all tuning in for this. I was saying C-Web's cooking for the holidays, so I was wishing everybody that is part of our Jewish contingent out there a Happy New Year, and that's kind of where we were at before I realized I was muted. So there we go.
That brings you up to date. That's what I was saying. I was busy with. So there you go.
Yeah, sorry if I'm loud. Let me punch me down a little bit. My microphone always comes across loud. So just looking, really quickly. I mean, I'm not going to put the standings up on the screen here, but an interesting season 11. I think some teams that came out and surprised us this season versus some of the ones that I think maybe might have disappointed or underperformed from what we're accustomed to seeing maybe in the norm. I mean, just asking you, C Web, like what was your biggest surprise about season 11 so far? Obviously, we still have postseason to go, but this regular season coming to a conclusion on Friday. What's your, what
Um,
what's some surprises to you, and then maybe what I guess what is maybe not a surprise to you? You figured they would be right where they're at.
uh, so the Texas Longhorns, that was a bit of a surprise. They're only 2-6. Kind of thought they would maybe finish around 500. I didn't really expect the fall off that I saw from them this season. Um, Georgetown kind of ended up right where I thought they would. I'm going from the bottom up
Yeah,
here.
you're good. You're good.
Georgetown kind of ended up right where I thought they would. Although they started off the season really well and they showed a lot of mettle in a few games here and there, so they had a decent season. They just couldn't get the wins. USC fell off a cliff. I don't know what happened there. Um, they
Yeah.
didn't win. I think they 2 or 3 last year. They were okay last year. If things kind of fell off a cliff this year.
I think if we're looking at teams that probably are a little bit of a surprise, at least for me, would be Ohio State, obviously coming off a national championship. Switching coaches, I didn't see them at 1-7. To be honest with you, I think that for me is the biggest surprise coming out of this season. But there are two or three other teams towards the bottom here that I'm hoping that they can make some noise in conference tournaments to the point where they can maybe change the scenario of the outlook of their season. And you look at a team like Mississippi State, who literally was in pretty much almost every game that they played, yet always fell on the losing side, sitting at 1-7. You got a team like Stanford, sitting at 2-6. A lot of talent there, just not able to be as win as many games as I think Gordo would have loved to them. And then you got San Diego State, another team which was North Carolina last year, who did really well last year with that roster under Recessinator as a coach. Just those are a couple of surprise teams to me that I feel like if we started the season now, I wouldn't be looking at where they're currently sitting. So from the losing side, I think that is a little bit of a surprise for me. On the winning side, I think looking at Marquette sitting at 7-1, I think people might say their strength of schedule probably was not the best in the CSBA. However, you can't poop on a 7-1 season, right? I mean, they're 7-1. They're one of five teams that sit at 7-1. So to me, Marquette on the winning side was a little bit of a surprise. I think there was some fall off from some teams like a Houston or a Virginia Tech that I think some people weren't expecting. But what's your take on the flip side of that situation?
Yeah, I think Marquette. I mean, surprise, not a surprise. I think it was more of a surprise that they did so poorly last year, and this feels like they kind of got things back on track. Again, strength of schedule, maybe that has something to do with it, but 7-1, I don't see them going worse than 5-3, even with a better strength of schedule. They played some pretty decent games. Um, uh, Other side of things,
And just a shout out to VGL who's rating us. Appreciate you guys.
oh yeah, appreciate that. Virginia Tech kind of fell off from their national title season. I was a little surprised by that.
And my apologies. Virginia Tech had the title. It wasn't Ohio State. I don't know why I said Ohio State before. I got my head.
2 seasons ago, and Ohio State was undefeated until they lost to an 8 seed in March Madness.
Yeah, so my apologies for that little mix up. The seasons after a while they start to meld together. But yeah, I mean, Virginia Tech, I think, coming off of an undefeated season, obviously you have a lot of pressure on you after having a season like that. So to see them slip to 5-3, again, they're still not having a bad season. Just probably not, when you have this solid season that they had last year. Some other surprise teams, I think. It's nice to see the Duke Blue Devils rebounding at 6-2. You've got Arizona State, which I don't think anybody saw them being at 7-1. You've got your Gonzaga Bulldogs at 7-1. Oregon and Arkansas also 7-1. Those are teams that I think at the start of the season I certainly didn't think that that's where they were going to kind of be sitting.
Yeah, Arkansas was a surprise. I will say, like, taking an undefeated season into the last week, that I was surprised that they did that. They had a really good season. Things fell apart in that one game, but they've been one of the better defensive teams all year. And speaking of defensive, the Duke Blue Devils, you mentioned them. They have the highest point differential on the league this year, sitting at 6-2. So that's a team that could be really dangerous. Like, the games they lost they didn't lose by much.
Yeah, no, definitely did not. Some nice surprise teams, I think. Yes, he's sitting at 4-4, but you've got Washington and Florida State. I think there were moments of brilliance this season for them. A few moments of where they've literally, you were like, whoa, this is not the same team I saw last week. We've not been as consistent, but some solid teams in the middle there as well. And I think some people might even look at like a Richmond as a surprise of 4-4. South Carolina 5-3, Kansas at 5-3. So in that middle pack, there is some really strong teams. Csba, any of those guys surprising you? I think Iowa 3-5 might be a little bit of a surprise to me. Although shout out to them, they had a very difficult season. Probably, in my opinion, probably one of the hardest strength of schedules, and yet the ironic part about Iowa, just kind of focusing specifically on them. Heading into Big Ten conference matchups, I didn't have high hopes because they hadn't played as well as they were capable of playing, and they walked into the Big Ten and went 2-1. Had that win in the Carrier Classic, so a solid game by them, a big win over Michigan. I think that surprised Michigan a little bit, and obviously they take home the Big Ten crown in conference play. But any of those teams that we just talked about, anything that you kind of feel strongly about those specific teams?
I really think Iowa is one of those teams, like you said, I didn't have high hopes for them, and then now as March Madness approaches, they look like a team that could do some damage. They took out Michigan, which was a shock to a lot of people, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe start to perform a little bit better here now that they've got some momentum and have found some traction on the season.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want to take anything away from Michigan. They've had a solid season. You've got Kentucky, who's had a solid season as well as 6-2. Kentucky, I feel like, is kind of hitting their stride right now as we head to the postseason, which is, if you ask me, is never a better time to actually hit your stride. They've won 3 straight games. I think the 2 hottest teams in the league right now, Oregon and Marquette and Gonzaga. They've all won 5, 6, and 7 games respectively. So there's a lot of teams right now who've got a lot of momentum, and then this is probably the best time of the season to have that momentum.
Yeah, I definitely think, like you said, this is the time to hit your stride, and those teams are definitely doing that right now.
Just a reminder to everybody, only 28 of 32 teams make the postseason. So even some of these teams that are sitting at the bottom, the Ohio State Buckeyes, the Mississippi State, the Wichita States, the USCs, a couple wins or a big win in conference play sometimes can change your season and can push you into March Madness. We saw that last year. A team that I think didn't even have any wins that actually went in over a team that had a win. So performance in those conference tournaments are still very important. I almost consider that like an additional conference game. So you definitely don't want to give up on your season. Let's change dynamic. Let's change the conversation here and let's share the rising stars that we'll see tomorrow night. I don't know if you've seen this list, C-Web, so you might want to put it up on your screen if you're not watching the stream. But
I'll go take a look at it in a sec. Go ahead.
But yeah, there is your CSBA season 11 rising star Ross starters as well as their bench. You've got Jordan Holt for South Carolina, Alvin Iverson for Duke, DeHaven Whitney for Kentucky, Sage Sarmiento for Washington, Billy Hoyle for Villanova. That is your starting East roster. They're matching up on the West side. Boobie Miles from Michigan, Noah Johnson from Duke, Leo Cash Money from Iowa, Ryan Winley from San Diego State, and Theo Marcus from Duke. That's your starting 5 on each side. Then any thoughts at least on the starters anyway?
Definitely like the makeups of both of these teams. I think, I think there's some real big stars here. Alvin Iverson has been pretty lights out for Duke this season. So is Noah Johnson, who's on the other side.
Yeah, and he's going to have to go up against his teammate, which is kind of funny. I thought that was pretty interesting how the rosters kind of shook out. But
yeah, I kind of like that, actually. Ryan Winley making the Rising Stars game. I like that. He had hopes of making the All-Star game even. I don't know. I haven't seen the roster for that either. So.
Yeah, and then, we have the All-Star rosters and the dunk and three-point contest have not been announced. That's going to get announced, I believe, sometime tomorrow night. G-Hart working on tallying all the votes. So if you haven't voted yet for the All-Star game or the three-point contest or the dunk contest, please, I beg you guys, get your votes in because it matters. You guys count for, I think, 40% of the vote and 60% coming from the admin, or 50-50. I forget what G-Hart, where he netted it out on. But let's look at the bench. J.J. Song from Texas Tech, Cade Padgett from Arkansas, Mateo Romero from Richmond, Jafari Jr. from Wichita State, Junior Ritter from Texas, Smitty McNeil from Virginia Tech, and Caliente from Oregon making up the East bench. And then on the West side, you've got Bradley Charles Kingston from Kansas, Kingston Ali from Michigan, Mamba Baby from Kentucky, Brian Marçal from Iowa, Asante Hanzo from Kentucky, Enrique Spider from Arkansas, and Jafar Kaida from Texas Tech. What's your thoughts on that on the benches?
I really like Mateo Romero from Richmond on the East roster. I think he's going to have a more of an effect here than a lot of people thought, just based on his season. Same with Jafari Jr. He's on a team kind of mired him down in the lower part of the rankings, but I think he could have an impact here. Looking at the other side, it's a pretty solid bench. Like, these are guys that we definitely expected to have good seasons coming in. Bradley Charles, Mamba Baby, maybe people that nobody was really too familiar with coming in, but they had great seasons. Kingston Ali, Enrique Spider, Jafar Ukita, these are names of guys that we knew were probably going to be here.
Yeah, for sure. And the one thing I feel like the West roster feels a little bit more impactful than the East roster. But there are players on the East, at least from the starting side, that I think, just Alvin Iverson, Sage Sarmiento, the way Jordan Holt has played this season. Like I could see at least the starters for the East holding serve, but I think that bench for that West is a little bit deeper. So, but congratulations to all these guys. Obviously, big deal making the rising stars. That just means you're being noticed around the league. Certainly, we've seen a lot of these rising stars go on to be actual all stars in the future. Especially, I think when we looked at some of this year's nominees for the All Star game. A lot of the guys that were in last year's Rising Stars game were in that. But what you feeling? I mean, do you think one team is more stacked than the other? Do you think they're pretty even? Like, what's your thoughts?
I think it's pretty even. Like you said, I think there's more guys that are noticeably impactful on the West roster, at least stats wise. But there's a lot of players on the East that I think you're going to notice in this game that maybe you didn't notice during the regular season, the way they play.
Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe they don't get as much attention. So it'll be interesting to see these guys kind of be put a little bit put in the spotlight and see how they handle that. That game is tomorrow night, I believe at 9:00 is what I had put it on the schedule for. I think that's tomorrow night. I'm sorry if I am. I just want to really make sure because I'm forget which I did this week. I believe it's either tomorrow night. Hold on. I apologize for not knowing this. Yeah, Rising Stars is tomorrow. Yeah, that's what I thought. I forgot which day I put it on. I was just trying to remember what days my kids have baseball and this week and trying to figure out which was the right one. But yeah, congratulations to these guys. Obviously, this is a big deal for these guys, and they should hold their heads up high. Apologies to anybody that didn't make it. Obviously, only 26 spots available. There's only so many guys we can put in, but there were some other notable names, I'm sure, across the league that probably did not make this list. Jumping back, I know we talked a little bit about season 11. Just wanted to briefly talk about season 12. Season 12 coming up. As of right now, season 12, there should not be a huge break between the seasons. The hope is that we can kind of run season 12 literally within a week or two after season 11 ends, and I might just take that as a breather week because I feel like I've been on since the season has started. But the hope is to take maybe a week off and then kind of get everything geared up and ready to go. There are a lot of high school players that I feel like have kind of gone MIA. I'm hoping those guys kind of can resurface because there was a decent high school class, C-Web, of players this season.
Yeah.
So the hope is that those guys, and some of those guys were remakes, but then obviously, to anybody that is a senior currently right now that hasn't made a player, now is certainly a good time to start digging in and making those players to give us the opportunity to get ahead of it prior. The hope, and I was hoping this was going to be a season 12 thing, but it might be more of a season 13 thing, is the shift to potentially 2K25. I've messed around with it. I've messed around with the game. There's a lot of cool aspects of the game. There's some nuances. Obviously, the game is different. The badges are different. So we will have to do some recreating, which obviously takes some time. So maybe it's not such a bad thing about it, about us not going to it for season 12. The other piece to the puzzle, too, that I really haven't talked to many people about is the modding tools are not necessarily fully all out yet for 2K25. The game just came out, like 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah, pretty much.
So I've started to dig in a little bit. I've been working and talking to Rob Davis a little bit about specifics. The game is completely different, and with regards to the way the file structures are, which obviously I kind of feel like I can mod 2K20 with the back of my hand at this point. Know it like the back of my hand, rather. But digging into 25 has definitely been a little bit of a challenge. I'm starting to get a little bit of an understanding of it, but What's really cool about 25, if you haven't picked up the game yet, there are tattoos in the game. We can put tattoos on players, which that's going to be fun. There's some new hairstyles, new badges to learn. There are less badges, so there's not as many. So there's going to be a lot of little nuances. And I'll say something here, and I probably wasn't going to announce this, but it's just something, again, 20. If we go to 25, which is the hope, what I would like to try to do in the long run, and it's all going to be contingent upon number of players in the league, time consumption, who's streaming, etc., and who we can able to work on it. I would like to. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. It may not be a 13 thing, but I would love to bring women's college basketball to the forefront as well. The cool thing about 2K25 now is you can create women as well as men in the game, which I think is really cool. So if we have the ability to do that, that would be a really cool way to add into the CSBA. I know there's a big contingent of CSBAers that love women's basketball, so this could be a cool little twist. Again, it's not guaranteed. It's more of a wish than a game plan, but it's something that I would like to do. So I'm not sure. What's your thoughts on that, Csba?
I mean, that would definitely be one exciting thing to bring in. You've got different programs that are dynasty programs in women's basketball versus men's. So it's an entirely different landscape, and it's an entirely different, kind of a game planning, wrinkle in game planning. You have to see, are the animations going to be the same, or are they going to have completely different animations for the women, or what? How's it going to work?
Yeah, I mean, I've played around with it. The animations are definitely different. Obviously, you're not going to get the dunks and stuff like that, but kind of fun. Again, just throwing it out there. It doesn't mean that isn't going to be what we're going to do. G Hard just, of course, dropped a comment. He said, "What about the 3-on-3?" I had to put that on the back burner, to be honest with you. The reason I put it on the back burner was because Tony Bricks, who was supposed to run that for me, ghosted our server. And unfortunately for me, it kind of was a really shitty situation because I was out a lot of money because I actually laid out money for a computer for him, and then he disappeared off the face of the earth right after he got the computer. So that is not something that the league necessarily knows. But Tony was working with me, was super excited about it. I don't know what happened to Tony. It's a sad situation, but so I don't know. I don't know what that's going to go on with the 3-on-3 yet. It's something I still like to do, but yeah, it hurt. That was a definitely one that hurt my wallet, and it hurt what I wanted to do because he was super gung ho to do it. So.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but
yeah, I mean, a lot of the CSBA doesn't know that, but that was a huge loss for me that I ended up learning my lesson on a hard way. So that's what I get for putting trust into people. But it is what it is. But hopefully, I still would love to do the 3-on-3 thing. Just again, these are all different. It's something that I would want to do, but I don't know if we're going to get to do. So we'll see. I haven't forgotten about it, but something that I was thinking about. So that's kind of what I had thought about 2K25. I just played around with 25, though. I was even playing around with it for a little while before. The animations, so from what I understand and from what I've played around with, there were some people that were complaining, 2K25, when you flick a stick, the guy does some sort of animation and you're not even controlling the animation, right? And I was thinking to myself, well, that kind of sucks if you're a user. That's not something that you're gonna wanna. You're gonna kind of wanna use, right? You're gonna wanna create or make the play, and if the game isn't kind of predetermining what that is, well, that's gonna suck. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's not bad in the sim world, because if you think about it, that just makes our game look even better when we're running sims, right? So from that perspective, I was pretty gung ho about that and pretty excited about that. So I was playing around with it today, and I was playing with the Knicks, and the game already updated the Karl Anthony Towns trade in it, believe it or not. But I was dribbling up with Jalen Brunson, and you can like see his dreads kind of like flowing in the background as he's bringing the ball up. So it's definitely, I think finally they were nice enough to give us next gen for this version. The only issue with it again is there's a lot of nuances that are different than what we're accustomed to for 20. So my hope is that by season 13 rather, that we can switch to 25. That's the hope. So we should be announcing some of the awards hopefully here in the next week. I know Bryce has been digging in behind the scenes. Hopefully, I hadn't talked this about C-Web, so I'm going to put him on the spot here, but was hoping that we'd get a March Madness preview magazine like we've done for the last couple seasons. So I know he's got a couple weeks before that happens. So
we can work on something for that, but I've got some time before that becomes an issue.
Yeah. So, and then obviously any of the coaches out there, please utilize Box Out Sports if you can. We've had some, I was able to get Lion United to pitch in and kind of help and do some tweeting out in the last couple weeks, and hopefully he's going to continue to do more for us. But we are paying a lot of money for the Box Out Sports, and before I end up deciding to cancel it, I want to make sure that we're getting the use out of it that we can. So if you're a coach, please use it. It's definitely a game changer for us, especially with social media and just in graphics and promoting the league in general. Really quickly, C-Web, because I didn't want to make this a very long wired up. Are there any anything that you think from the content team that you want to just bring out or talk about a little bit here? I know I'm putting you on the spot because we really didn't talk about it, but like anything that you think that we might be looking forward to, or things that you and I have talked about that we haven't done that you're like, hey, I'm working on this from a content perspective.
I have some interviews on the back burner that I'd started earlier this year. Team interviews. One was South Carolina and a couple others. I know those guys probably are wondering what happened to that. I still have it. It's still a thing in the works. I just kind of ran out of time between other stuff. So that'll probably be part of the March Madness magazine now.
Oh, perfect.
So.
And then hopefully, and I know we did this in the past, hopefully we can get a team of guys to put together, but would love a high school rankings prior to recruiting out, just so that the teams have an idea of who to look out for. Because every year we know who's kind of the top guy coming out of high school.
I think somebody was talking about doing something with that. I'll have to get back to you on that one. But yeah, there's probably going to be some high school rankings, some transfer rankings, things like that, as we have that kind of stuff announced.
All right, sounds good. I don't know at this point if there's going to be any new arcs on the horizon for next season. If I decide to do it, it will be a decision probably made in the next 2 weeks. It's just a lot of work, and then obviously if you want to flip the season on its head and kind of focus on 25, it might be pointless to create them and waste of time. So I'm going back and forth in my head, but that's just kind of an update for everybody on that front. And then it's been an interesting season. This season, and if you're just kind of looking at the stats, we've seen some players that are like just playing beyond I think anybody would have expected. You look at a guy like Penny Dimes, he's averaging over 23 points a game. Big reason why South Carolina has been as good as they are. You've got a guy like Lance Kabongo, pretty much the reason why the Friars are sitting at 500. You got a guy like East Lord who's carried the torch for Kansas. You've got Braxton McFadden, who's literally, I feel like, the only guy on Ohio State that's playing well right now and keeping them in any game that they're in. But any guys besides the ones that I mentioned, or the ones that I mentioned for you, C-Web, that really stand out?
Lance Kabongo, obviously, he stands out. Penny Dimes leading the league in scoring. That's a big name.
And that's a new arc too. That's that was the what arc is he again? I forget. The new one. He's a new one. I can't think of it. DeMar Rosen.
Yeah. Also, Styles Stern transferring from Gonzaga to Texas Tech, changing positions to small forward. He's had a really impressive season after doing that too. So
yeah, Night J writes that we already have a lot of arcs. Yeah, and I know that. I do. Oh, there is one other thing that I wanted to talk about, and I haven't announced this, and I did have this conversation with Bryce. We talked about, and I have to run it, see how it looks. We talked about making the Yao Ming arc 3 inches shorter, making him from 7'6" to 7'3", because I think it is, even though I still expect it to be a very good arc, but it's becoming slightly OP with the 7'6".
yeah,
So we talked about that. That's a possibility on the horizon. I don't think we're killing it. I think we're just gonna shorten him for about 3 inches.
yeah. It wasn't like we were taking it away or anything. The whole conversation was just to make it like in line with the height of. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with a lot of people just going to that arc consistently. Pac said he doesn't want that for life. Yeah, I mean, luckily, I don't think it'll affect the overall of the player, but I think the 3 inches makes a difference. So as long as it doesn't affect the overall, we're most likely gonna just drop it from 7'6" to 7'3".
Yeah.
Which I think if I'm not mistaken, is in line with the Shaq arc. If I'm not correct, right?
It's one of them. I forget what.
But anyway, so that's just something that we talked about. And I think that was the only updates. I think that was the only updates that we had. Again, just remember. Yeah, I think we were trying. Yeah, thanks, Pax. I think we were trying to just make it. I think we were doing 7'3" to make it in line with the stretch. I think that's what we said. Yeah. Thank you, Pax, for clarifying. Just a reminder, guys, please vote for the All-Stars and please vote for the three-point and dunk contest. Remember, don't vote for your own team. Those votes will not count. G-Hart is literally scratching off and writing notes, and I see it every day in our administration channel of whose votes do not count. So if you can, please vote. And again, we also need coaches. If there's anybody that's interested in coaching, I think we still probably going to have like 3 or 4 spots that are open. We could potentially talk about rebrands if there's a need to do that as well. So please vote, and obviously if you're interested in being a coach, please fill out an application. See, we have anything you want to talk about before we sign off?
No, I think we hit on everything. I'm sure we'll probably do another one of these before March Madness too.
Absolutely, yeah. I want to. Tonight was a little bit of more of a shoot from the hip kind of wired up, just because to give you guys something to chat about and give some updates, so that it's not always just a league announcement. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys, and obviously I'm looking forward to All-Star Week this week, and then I'm also looking forward to conference tournaments. Is appreciated. G Hart said the amount of people still voting wrong for teammates despite the rules is wild, and it happens every. I mean, Garrett, I know you handled that. You've handled that for the last 2 seasons, but for the last 11 seasons, I think that rule has still been in play, and we really haven't. We really haven't changed it, and yet people still vote for their teammates. I mean, the reason, and just so that everybody understands the reason why we don't allow votes for your teammates. If everybody just votes for their teammate, all those votes basically just cancel each other out. So the hope is if you vote for somebody else that is deserving, somebody else will vote for you. That is the way we have done it. But what I will say is that, and Garrett, confirm on this, I think we said the league's vote is 40% value and the admins are 60%. We did that because just to help out with favoritism, because a lot of times people just vote for their friends. So
Yeah,
I believe it was 60-40 is what we did. So
I think that's right. I'd have to look.
yeah. And the hope is, there's one other update to give too. Is the hope is next season we will also have an update to our website and it'll look a little bit nicer. Hopefully we can bring our content to that too. So that is the hope there. That is something that I've gone ahead and purchased the theme for the website. I just need to install it. So excited about that. So it might look even nicer than what we have now. So be on the lookout for that next season. And see, Webb, any party words?
No. Enjoy All-Star Week, and it's going to be an exciting game, and I think the dunk contest will be pretty cool too.
Yeah, it should be fun, and he just confirmed 60-40. So, but yeah, and then obviously, Happy New Year to all of our Jewish friends in the CSBA community. We appreciate you. See, Webb, those briskets look good, by the way.
Yeah, there's more update to that for today. So.
Yeah, I love that channel. That was a great suggestion by Big Dog on just getting to know everybody. It's it keeps it out of league chat and just kind of gives everybody an opportunity to get to know each other on a real basis, as opposed to one post being lost in a sea of crap talk being spoken.
Yeah.
So. I got high school games this week too. If you can, tune in for those. Ace will be on the streams for those 6 p.m. games. And again, happy Passover. Excuse me, happy Passover. Happy New Year to all of our Jewish friends. And